Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening. And as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Aldwyn Altuney, joining you for Total Truth Show today with my co-host Ken Kleinberg from San Diego. How you going, Ken?
Doing amazing. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. I've come out of my funk and I'm all good to go. We are chatting today with the amazing Daniel Baker. The truth about turning gaming into power and success is our topic today, episode 110. Woohoo! Very exciting. We've got 111 coming up very soon. That's going to be a magical number for our next show as well. Now, a little bit about Daniel. He's coming to us all the way from Tennessee. So we're going to have some great accents on this show. Of course, I'm not the one with the accent here. You guys are, right?
That's right.
It's not me. It's not me. Okay, now Daniel is a leadership and career coach, proving that gaming isn't a waste of time. It's epic level training for real world success. After 15 years at a Fortune 500 company, he discovered that the same raid leading skills from World of Warcraft, Star Wars, The Old Republic, and Final Fantasy XIV helped him land promotions and lead high-impact teams. As the founder of Dragonmore XP, Daniel now helps gamers turn their passion into power, transforming in-game skills into career growth, leadership, and unshakable confidence. Welcome, Daniel. So great to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, Olive. Thank you so much, Ken. Happy to be here. This is fantastic. And thank you for just doing what you guys do, too. This is just amazing what you got. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, you know, one thing I know for sure that we need nowadays more of is fun. And that's what I love about games, is that games bring fun into the world. And I think the more fun you have, the more money you make, as they say as well. And I've noticed a lot more things nowadays are getting gamified, right? It seems like gaming has infiltrated its way into so many things now. So can you share your journey there, Daniel, with gaming? And have you always been a gamer, or, you know, have you always loved games? You know, what's your journey been like?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I have always been a gamer. So as long as I can remember, I had the starting back on the Atari, right? I think it was the Atari 5200, 5400. So the late stage Atari, and then into the Nintendo. I was a Nintendo generation and had, every console from Super Nintendo to the 64, the GameCube. I have a Switch. I'm looking to get a Switch 2 soon as I'm recording. So I've played all the consoles since as long as I can remember. So gaming's always been just like this fun passion, this fun core of my being. And that journey into, I guess, you know, transitioning to whether college and adulthood, it's always stuck with me, because that was one thing I noticed, like some friends and just other people would drop off, right? You know, like they moved into adulthood. It's like, well, we'll leave childish things behind. It's like, well, I mean, if you love it, right? It's not something that you just give up overnight. There's still, there's plenty of adults that play Legos too, right? So, so you just have so much creativity, so much fun that you want to keep with you. And what always stood out to me as strange was just this idea, this notion that video games don't matter. Like, video games are a waste of time. That was always the surprise to me. So growing up, I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it now, that it's a waste of time. But it was always kind of hard to put into words back then, especially as a kid, be like, I'm having fun. How is this a waste of time if I'm at least enjoying it? Right. And so one of the key things that I do now, coming into as far as the leadership coaching, because one of the questions I like to ask is, were you told growing up that your gaming wasn't going to get you anywhere in life? Were you told it was a waste of time? And what I like to turn it on is to say, well, what if all that gaming time, what if all the hours you spent gaming have actually been honing your skills to actually mastery of important life skills and you didn't even realize it?
No doubt. And what are some of those life skills that they hone? I'm very curious to see what you have to say, Daniel.
Absolutely. So I think the key for me is there's a multitude of skills, but the top ones that I always look at, that I say that any gamer at all, right? It doesn't matter what game. So we have a wide variety of games, right? Wide variety of genres. But the one skill I know that every gamer has is problem solving. This critical thinking and problem solving skills are not only like just a part of it, it's just so ingrained, right? Because problem solving is just basically taking these like little puzzles, little obstacles, and that's what we do in games. Everything is either puzzle. It doesn't have to be puzzle games. Most adventure games have some kind of a puzzle in it, and then there's just kind of obstacles to overcome. So these challenges that we overcome in games, we don't think about it in that context, right? As far as problem solving, we just think it's a fun game and this is the challenge right now and I overcame it. Great. So I like to say that gamers are the best problem solvers on the planet because we do it for fun.
That's so interesting. Yeah, problem solving. And I guess also there's an element of being ambitious, isn't there? Because you want to win the game. If you're playing a game, you don't want to, generally people don't play games to lose them. So there's this ambition that can come from that as well. And this, maybe this, sort of stamina and drive that can also come from people who play games.
Yes, the stamina one is absolutely another one that I teach. Is I like to put it in the business term we like to call it is resilience. Right, just the being able to persevere in the face of adversity. And how many gamers have beat their game on the very first try? Never. It's never happened. Right. So even the people that can complete it all the way through, they had to have hours and hours of practice to get it to that point where they can do a run without taking damage or without their character dying. But failure is inherently part of gaming. Right. And it's just something that I think in the business world, in the corporate world especially, it just kind of is just this overlooked skill of like, you want to fail. You want to fail in a way that you can learn and move on and do something better, right? But in corporate, especially, coming from a corporate America background, it's a lot of that kind of culture where it's like you got to hide the fact that you don't know or that you failed at something because you're worried you're going to get fired, you're going to get demoted, you're going to get, even if it's a slap on the wrist, you're like, I just don't want to have conflict. But in gaming, it's inherently a core part of the game that you're going to fail, you're going to lose, and you're going to learn from it and do better. And so it's taking that skill into the real world that I think a lot of gamers have a challenge with because it's so vastly different between corporate and gaming.
Now, Daniel, So first, I want to share this before I ask you the question that I want to ask you here, because I want you to share a certain part of your story, which I find very, very fascinating and amazing. But, what's interesting about playing the game over and over and over again and getting good experience through it and then eventually beating the game, one of the very first games that comes to mind that's, I think, a perfect example. Plus, because a lot of games that you play today in today's world, so World of Warcraft, StarCraft, you've got Diablo, you've got like a lot of these other games, you can save the progress in that game. But a lot of games back in the Nintendo days, you could not save. You couldn't save your progress. Like Super Mario Brothers is a classic example of that. You had 3 lives unless you found ways to get more lives, and there are little bonuses and things you can do to get more lives, but you only get 3 lives. And then once you die, you start over. But here's the other thing. Once you begin the game journey, you either have to finish it all in that sitting, or you have to give up your progress and start again when you come back at a later time. So I really think Super Mario Brothers is a perfect example on how repetitive action constantly, is going to improve you and different things like that. There's better words to use for the way I want to describe that, but I think you get the point that I'm making here. It's
exactly,
really
yeah. I definitely get it, Ken. It's I think in gaming there's a couple ways I want to go with this, where yes, especially the older, like the Nintendo generation too, especially where you could not save, right? There wasn't enough memory on the Nintendo to save, and so you had to play through it in that setting, right? And you couldn't go back, and if you wanted to play it again, you had to start from the beginning. But there's a couple things here, because yes, it's that kind of perseverance and resilience. And back then, that's when we had the game over screen, right? You don't see the game over screen much in modern games, right? It's everything is just much more like, oh, autosave feature, you can keep going if you lose. Like, okay, so game over is kind of a thing of the past, but it's just inherent in the culture still, which is really fun. But what you're talking about too, I like a lot, and what I like to teach as far as the knowledge and that kind of learning from failure that we talked about. And in a lot of RPGs, we call this New Game Plus, right? For the gamers that understand, especially with the RPGs, New Game Plus is if you go through and you beat a game, you can start the game over, but you get to start a brand new game, but you get to keep all your skills. It depends on the game, so they'll be different, but like you usually get to keep your skills. Sometimes you get to keep like your character's level. Sometimes you get to keep the character's equipment. You get to keep the money you have. And you get to play through the game, but now it's a whole different experience because you get to keep all these things with you. And I feel like that's a lot of the time what we think in life, where there is no do-over, right? That's something that I know everybody, I think, has wished at some point, right? I wish I could go back to when I was a kid, or I wish I could go back and repeat this, year of my life. I wish I could repeat this day because it was terrible. I would do it all over again. Those kind of things that people think about. But there is no do-over in life. But at the same time, there is a little element of New Game Plus in our lives that I want to encourage people that says, if you start something new, if you, unfortunately say like you get laid off and you have to go to another job now and you have to go job search, you enter this new job, it's brand new. You've never done it before. Man, you got to start from zero. Not true. You get to bring all the experience and all the knowledge with you that you've accumulated up to that point. Mm-hmm. And so we have this kind of New Game Plus element in our lives that says, I get to bring all my knowledge and my skills with me. So I think, and that's exactly what I'm thinking too, is that you get to bring yourself with you. So all that knowledge is going to be so much more powerful wherever you go. And it's just making sure you tap into that you bring.
Yeah, that's perfect. You explained it better than I did. Thank you for that.
Here to help.
Now, the other thing is you have an amazing story on how you asked for a promotion in your job. And so can you share that story and what happened there and how you ended up getting that promotion? Because I think that's a powerful story to share. Especially with the rank that you got in the particular game you were playing. So Go ahead.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know, or I guess as part of the intro in the bio, thank you for that, Aldwyn. So I did work at a Fortune 500 company initially, right? So now, I was doing this with Dragon More XP, really loving working with gamers directly. But before that, I worked at one of these big companies, right? I did what you were supposed to do. I went into college, and then I got out of college and I worked a little, side job. I actually worked at GameStop, right? So video games, right? So it was always part of me. I was an assistant manager for a while, and they said, no, you should probably go back and get a master's degree. I'm like, okay. I did what you're supposed to do. I went back and got an MBA. Come out of that and go to a new job. And they're like, hey, this is what you're going to do now. Fantastic. And I did what you're supposed to do. I was just on autopilot, I felt like, most of my life. So I did what you were supposed to do. I went to my boss and asked for a raise. And they looked at me and they're like, you do good work, Daniel, but we just don't see your leadership potential. So I was crushed. I was devastated. And I was like, ugh, I just don't understand this corporate leadership thing. So I go home and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But at the same time, while I was at home, of course, I'm gaming. And this was at the time I was playing Star Wars The Old Republic, for those that remember that one. So one of these online MMOs, millions of players. And we were doing the hardest content in the game, which, raiding, for those that know MMO terminology or don't. For those that don't know what an MMO or raiding is, just imagine you have like 8 of your friends. They could be random people on the internet, actually, so internet friends. And there's 8 of you all on a team, and you have to beat this boss all together. And if anybody messes up at any point, it's called a wipe. Everyone dies, and you have to basically walk back and try again. And some of these fights can last like 20 minutes. And within 20 minutes, if you fail, you start all over. So needless to say, like we talked about with the resilience in the gaming earlier, nobody does it the first try. So you fail and you fail over and over and over again. But it's the sense of progression, and we can talk about that later too. That's the gamer sense of progression is really powerful, and I think is one of the reasons that gamification works so well. So we're making constant little progress, and we're finally getting there, and we finally beat this boss. And it was like nightmare difficulty was the thing. It was the hardest content you could do at the game at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, we did it. This is fantastic. And like some of my friends that were in the group, they're like, yeah, this was amazing. It was awesome. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, no, you don't understand. We're number 2. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I've been following on the forums. Like on our server, we are the 2nd in the world on this server to clear this content. So 2nd in the world, meaning like of all the millions of players, we're in the top 1% in the world at beating this game and beating this content. And I was like, oh, well, dang, awesome. Great job, us, right? It's like, yes, Daniel, that was fantastic. You were such a great leader. And I was like, wait a minute. He didn't say guild leader, which I was. He didn't say raid leader. He said leader. And then it started to click. I was like, leadership is leadership. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Mm-hmm. So me taking a group of just random internet friends, going through this super difficult content and beating this. And again, we made the little progress along the way. And again, we played, I think, we did this content 2 nights a week. There were people that did it 7 days a week for longer than we did. And they didn't beat us. But because I didn't realize till after the fact that, I guess, my leadership show that as long as you hold your team accountable for their mistakes, but you're very encouraging, and it's not like you messed up, it's what went wrong, how can we help you, like what can we do to change this. A very encouraging environment. Everybody came with ideas and we all came together and we did it. And so that level of leadership, I was like, wait a minute, this is what they're looking for, right? At work, I'm just going to treat work like a game. I'm just going to take the same skills with me. And sure enough, I think it was within 3 short months, they're like, wow, we've noticed your leadership potential is just like really changed. You really developed your leadership skills. And I got promoted and I got like a 30% raise on top of it. And they're like, wow, you really learned those skills really quick. And I didn't tell them, but I was like, no, I actually already had them. You just didn't see them.
So powerful.
What a great story. I love that. I just want to go back to something you said before because it stumped me for a minute. And you said RPG. Now, for those who don't know gaming, right? Now, I'm not a gamer, although I used to play Pac-Man and, Mickey Mouse, etc. on my Game & Watch back in the day, or right back in the day. That was a different type of gaming. So that now showing my age, right? Which I used to love, by the way, and I was a top junior table tennis player for many years. Played for Australia for 6 years, so that's a type of game. And we always played backgammon and chess and checkers and all that kind of stuff. These are all games, right? This is gaming is another word. So when you said RPG, because there'll be people that'll be tuning in right now that have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. So could you share what you meant by RPG, please?
Sure. RPG stands for role-playing game, which is just a big kind of a catch-all name for just role-playing game is any kind of a game where you have some kind of a character that you play as that can have some kind of like progression, right? Some kind of level system. You go level 1 through 100, level 1 through whatever, they 99 they sometimes max out. And there's usually some kind of like an XP, experience point system that quantifies how much you've learned so that you can level up to the next level. So it usually has connotations where, again, this sense of progression, not only for level, but like getting new equipment, getting stronger through items, all these different kind of little things you can do to improve your character. Dungeons and Dragons as a tabletop kind of thing is a classic RPG that's not a video game. So yeah, RPGs is really just that kind of role-playing games that can have that sense of progression and level up.
Beautiful. And then as I looked up RPG, there was also something called NPCs, which is non-player characters as well, right? So there's all these, so it's like a whole other language, isn't it, with some of these gaming terms. And
absolutely.
I'm sure it will bamboozle some people, but this is the thing too about power and success is that, everything is hard until it becomes easy. And, I'm sure for everyone who's ever played any game, the first time they played it, they were crap at it. And then they learned the rules of the game, or they learned to fine tune their skills. And I think there's a lot to be said for this, for having that resilience and that patience to be able to, to keep showing up even when something is challenging first up.
Absolutely. I think gamers inherently understand it. And it's just like bridging that gap to kind of the rest of their lives, the rest of, whether it's their workplace, their career, or if, their own business. It's really just trying to show them that like you're 90% of the way there, right? And having that, because that gamer vernacular, some of it doesn't necessarily translate as far as like, is trying to explain what is an RPG, what is an NPC. Not everybody understands, but everybody understands perseverance and resilience and problem solving. Leadership skills. Like these are all things that gamers have. We just need to translate it into the non-gamer vernacular.
And I'm sure the casinos worldwide, none of them would be as successful as they are if people didn't love games, right? In fact, I was at the casino here on the Gold Coast last night, and I was actually watching. I went around some of the roulette tables and blackjack, and I was watching how people were doing these games, and it was really interesting to see how people were playing these games. Some people just put all their chips on, on something, and some people were just very careful with what they put their chips on. Like everyone has different ways of playing the games. And, and everyone has different ways of dealing with their losses. And when you're dealing with obviously money, when money's on the table, some people deal with it better than others because money also can be a massive trigger. So, can we share about that, where people, when they feel that they've had a loss or a failure, as you mentioned earlier, what are some ways to build that resilience so that you don't just completely lose it if you lose the game or if you lose a whole lot of money at the casino? We're not encouraging anyone to gamble here because they say only gamble what you're prepared to lose, right? Because, essentially you might win some, but generally most people lose more than they win when it comes to gambling. However, with gaming, it's a different story. So some ways to build that resilience. What do you recommend?
So for building the resilience, I think to me, there's two major aspects of the resilience. I think when you're playing games that you kind of think about, and the first I think is just simply learning, right? You failed and you might get frustrated or angry, but sometimes whether you know it or not, because sometimes you get really mad, you want to throw the controller across the room. But no, at the same time, you learn something like, oh, well, the boss hit me because it did this. It's like, okay, well, when I do this, it does this. Like you start to find patterns, right? So you have to think about it a little bit. And if you have to make it a more conscious decision, you're like, okay, well, what happened? How can I do it differently, right? How can I overcome this obstacle? So like you treat it as just a learning experience. And because I think that's a huge part of failure that we kind of talked about a little bit, but to kind of touch on, because I don't think that failure is the opposite of success. I think failure is the path to success.
Amen.
Right? You have to go through failure to be successful. The more successful someone is, the more they've failed. Let's be real. But as long as you learn something from the failure, you can move forward. So in the same way in a game where it's like, well, this boss hit me because I did this. Well, I won't do that. I'll do this attack. You learn something. In the same way, in your career, right? Like you mess something up, maybe the customer got mad because you did something. I don't know. But if you learn from that experience, like, oh, well, I shouldn't be doing this. You know, if a customer asks for this, this is what they want. I shouldn't be talking about this. You know, like, you learn from the experience. Like, yes, it sucks, and you have to like kind of sit with that a little bit. But the best way to move past it is to say, okay, well, what's the opportunity here? What did I learn? And then I think the second thing for me is really, especially with games, treat failure not only as a learning experience, but just again with the opportunity side of it, make it fun, make it interesting. Because why do we play games? And I'll ask Ken Aldwyn, why do you play games? Whether it is the casino, whether it's video games, whether it's tennis, whatever it is, why do you play?
Ken, I'll let you answer first.
Yeah.
Why do you play?
Thank you. So I think because it's fun, and there is a sense of adrenaline that comes with it. There's a sense of just being drawn into that moment. Like, I think one of the games that I used to play a lot, about 2 or 3 years ago, is Diablo. Mm-hmm. And now I play it sparsely on and off, just because like life has gotten busy and different things like that. But like whenever I'm going, to level up or anything like that. And the thing about with Diablo is they actually have different difficulties in the game. So you can actually go in, and as your character gets stronger, you can change the difficulty level. I mean, they have multi-layered difficulties, and they have this whole layer called the torment layer, if you will. So where you've got like, I think it's like 7 different layers to that. And when you start playing around with that, and then you log back into the game, and then you go to play, it's like on certain torment levels, you get hit once, you're dead. It's like crazy. You've got no chance. So it's the rush of like getting to that next level. It's the rush of beating that one boss that's just crazy, that you've spent so much time on. And yeah, there's frustrating moments for sure. There's discouraging moments, just like in real life. But it's fun. You're addicted to the rush. You're addicted to the adrenaline that goes on there, and you are constantly in a state of trying to get better. Okay, well that strategy didn't work. What about this and this and this and this? Okay, well this time I'm gonna make sure I don't go full force and attack, and then just kind of keep attacking right there. I need to remember that I need to back up, and I need to get out of his line of fire, and then come out another direction and hit him, and then back up, come out of the line of fire, come at a different. So all of that you learn as you go.
Yes.
I think exactly right. Aldwyn, what do you think? Why are games fun?
Great answer, Ken. Why are they fun? Well, I think as kids, we play naturally, right? We want to play more. In fact, you look at the animal kingdom, a lot of animals just want to play. They're just playing all the time, right? And I think sometimes we lose that. And I think the older we get, we lose that sense of fun. And I think one thing that gaming does, or games do, is that they help us remember our innocence and our joy. They give us joy. I think when I look back at the earliest games, we had games in our family from a very young age, as far as like we play card games. Ibish was a game that, in fact, I just saw a whole lot of family members only a few weeks ago, and we sat around the table and we played this game called Ibish, which is called, or Oh Hell, and it's this card game we've been playing ever since we were kids. And when I think about how we were playing that game, and they say how you play games is how you do life as well. So it's a great way to see how people's personalities actually shine through at times when they're playing games. One thing I loved growing up playing games is that it was the connection with family. It was that sort of inner competitiveness to always, working to be better all the time, working to, fine tune our skills and, to keep getting back on the court when we fall down. Just because we lose a game doesn't mean we've lost life. Just because you failed at something doesn't mean you're a complete failure. So I think it is that also, that resilience and the the many different ways that the game can be played. And the personalities that shine through, I think I love to see that with group games particularly. I think back to, even just playing with a yo-yo, that's a game, right? Or playing something like Twister, like we used to play Twister as kids, and, all these things, one thing I used to love as a kid, I'd get on a swing and I'd just swing in the park on these swings until I'd go as high as I could, almost till I was spinning over 360 on the swing. But, that's one thing I just loved, was getting on a swing and just swinging, whatever it is. I think for me, bringing that joy and that most people say they just want to be happy, and when we play games, we generally are happy to an extent. We're happy to the point where, when we win a game, we feel amazing. When we lose a game, generally we feel crap. But the fact is, you stay on that roller coaster ride of life. I think games are a great analogy for life, for the roller coaster ride of life, that you have the highs of the highs when you're winning, the lows of the lows when you're losing. But the main thing, you just stay on that roller coaster ride of life. You learn all the way along the journey, enjoy the ride. There's so much I love about it. However, more than anything, I think is bringing that innocence and that play back to life, because I think people get way too serious. This is where we have, such a huge, mental health crisis across the world right now. 1 in 3 people have depression. I've had depression over the years. I still suffer with it sometimes, and the more I bring play back to my life, the better life is.
I love that answer. That's fantastic. And and I love both your answers, because it is just like such a full answer as far as like what is fun for you. Because a lot of the people I talk to, a lot of the people that I coach, like I'll notice that they'll stop at the very first word. It's what you both said, where it's fun. I'm like, yeah, games are fun. Why do we play games? Because they're fun, Daniel. What are you talking about? Get out of here. It's like, okay, I understand. Games are fun. That's why we play them. Why are they fun? And I love both your answers that go a little bit deeper to say, like, why are games fun for you? And I love Ken with Diablo, especially like the sense of just that growth, right? How do I level up and how to learn not only how to beat the bosses, but like how to grow my character to be more powerful, and all of that sense of connection. I definitely saw that as far as just that, how can we play together and just having that connection with other people is just so huge, and games bring that. And I love that. And it reminds me of so I'm sure you guys are familiar with Tony Robbins, right? And the 6 human needs.
Yes.
And I find it really interesting that the 6 human needs can be found very easily in video games, right? And for those that don't know, on the 6 human needs, as coined by Tony Robbins, is certainty, and then uncertainty or variety, significance, and then connection or love, growth, and contribution. And what are games if not all of those?
So true.
Certainty, because whatever you do in a game, you can do the same action, and it push the same button, the same thing happens. You're like, okay, well, it's at least on rails enough that like I can push buttons and actually have agency and control over what I'm doing. I have certainty. Variety is great because the games, there's thousands of games. What game do you want to play today? There's a gazillion of them, whatever you want to do. And all the different challenges and bosses, and they're all different and unique, different genres. Significance. This one I think comes to me. So like, I love all of them, and I kind of vibe with a lot of them. But if I had to pick one, it seems like Ken is about growth. Aldwyn is about connection. I would be somewhere around significance. And the reason I think for that, and it also depends on the games you play, you can kind of see this. I gravitate toward those RPGs that we talked about, these role-playing games. A lot of these role-playing games are kind of this adventure, right? You go out and basically a lot of these games go out and save the world. Some of them's like save the princess, or some of the bigger ones like go save the world. And for me, it was so interesting and fun thinking about it. Again, this was like years later in hindsight, thinking as a kid, like, why do I love RPGs so much? And then I finally dawned on me again, like much later in life, I kind of said, oh, I like RPGs because of my grandfather. For those that don't know, my grandfather was a very powerful and very well-loved and respected politician in the U.S. He was a U.S. senator. And he was, and I was like, well up thinking about it, he was considered the greatest statesman of his time.
Wow.
And as a kid, as an 8-year-old, I'm looking up to my grandfather like he's doing really cool things. He's affecting the nation, affecting the world. How do I do that as an 8-year-old? What's better to an 8-year-old than saving the world in a video game? And that's what you did in RPGs. All the RPGs were like, go out, beat this big monster. It's a terrifying, terrorizing everyone. You're going to beat this thing back and you're going to save the world. I was like, this is it. This is how I can be like him. So it did have that little sense of connection to be like my grandfather, but it also had that sense of significance. Like, I'm doing something. It's in a virtual world, but I'm doing something. So the 6 human needs, it's so core, I think, to video games. And so like any of these needs, like how do we draw significance from something? You play RPGs, connection, multiplayer games, any of these kind of games out here. If you're playing with a friend, I even like single player games for the sense of connection too, which is hilarious to think about. A lot of the RPGs, like the Final Fantasy series, most of those are single player, but it's so great for connection because it's a shared experience. I can talk to my friend who's played the same game and be like, oh, what did you do for this? Did you like this part of the story? Did you like these characters? We talk for hours about the same game that we both played, but in different ways. It's so fantastic. So much fun.
Now I'm curious, your grandfather, what was his name?
Senator Howard Baker Jr.
Okay. And I'm sure he was a great leader, and how interesting that you wanted to be like him. What are some things you remember about his leadership style and what made him a great leader?
I think what made him a great leader is that he wasn't overbearing. He wasn't trying to like make people do anything. He had this like charisma to him that people wanted to follow. And I think he was fair, right? Like he could be harsh when need be, but it was always fair. And he was always kind-hearted about it. So like you could tell he didn't want to necessarily be harsh, but like he could if the need arose. So he kind of led with kindness, is what I would say. And that's what I feel like I learned that from him too, because that's how we did the rating in Star Wars: The Old Republic, right? It was never, you effed up, get out of here. It was like, what happened? How can we change? How can we improve? So, and I'll say that I didn't really think of it even in that context. So thank you for bringing that up. That's kind of a self-discovery for me right now, right here, to say that that's part of where my leadership style came from, is watching him to say, like, you don't have to be overbearing or, like a micromanaging boss type or whatever. You can just lead with kindness and basically show people the way, and they'll want to follow you and help you and support you.
Yeah, I love that, because there's a ripple effect of everything we do, isn't there? Yesterday I came home. I went through a real funk over the last week. My dad went into hospital. Mum wasn't well in the nursing home. And, I just felt like I had a complete nervous breakdown. And I came back home to the Gold Coast. There's a 2.5-hour drive from where my parents lived to where I came home, and something was broken, right? And I hit the roof. I it takes a lot for me to get angry, but lately I've been finding I'm getting angrier much easier. So coming out a lot more. And then what I've been noticing is I don't like feeling angry. I don't like this feeling. And it's like, okay, something was broken again, like another thing broken, right? And I chose to get angry about it, right? And I said my piece about it, but then I thought, okay, how long am I going to hold on to this anger? Because then what happened is I woke up angry again this morning, and then eventually I got to the point I thought, and I actually pulled a few cards. I've got these Brahma Kumari set of cards, and the 3 cards I pulled this morning, one was serenity, one was tolerance, and one was harmony. Ooh. Right? Serenity, tolerance, and harmony. And I thought, what powerful cards. And I thought, okay, I can choose to remain angry right now, or I can just let it go and just be, okay, maybe this is teaching me something, like, maybe I've got too many possessions. Maybe it's time to clear some of my clutter, which is probably one thing there. However, also it's maybe to learn some compassion and some tolerance that, hey, accidents do happen and it's not the end of the world and it's a first world problem. And by me staying angry, it's going to affect the environment around me. So then I then got to the point where it was just before this show, actually, where I went to the person involved and I said, it's okay, I forgive you. Please be more careful in future and try not to break things around the house. Because this thing that was broken was like a handmade thing that you'll never be able to replace, right? But it's like, well, really, at the end of the day, it's a first world problem. I choose my response to the curveballs that life throws. And if you're going to lead with kindness, being angry doesn't help the situation, right? So actually letting go of my anger there for a moment, I expressed it. But, I guess the quicker we can move through these emotions that we experience as human beings when life throws curveballs, I could choose to be angry for a whole week if I wanted to, but I don't like that feeling. And I'm sure no one else around me is going to want to be seeing angry Aldwyn for the next week. So, it takes a lot of, self-awareness to be able to actually stop for a moment and go, okay, I'm now going to choose to let go of my anger over this situation that I cannot control this situation. It's happened in the past. And, what can I do moving forward to empower myself and those around me around the situation, right?
I love that. That's because being able to let go of the anger, because it is that conscious decision, and because you don't want to sit with it, and I think it's so easy to sit in it, and that's part of the problem. But I love that you're able to get yourself out of it, because being able, I guess, focusing on it, and that's really what we're talking about. It's like you're focused on the situation, you're focused on that kind of anger, and that's what kind of perpetuates it. And so to give you like one of my favorite movie lines of all time, which I think is hilarious, probably the least well-known but most impactful line from a Star Wars movie. I don't know. So have either of you seen Star Wars? Yeah, good old Star Wars. Yes, in the prequel ones, this is the funny part, is that this really powerful quote actually comes from the prequels, from The Phantom Menace. And it's just, I feel like it's almost a throwaway line. And you're like, no, wait, hold on, go back. That was important. Where Qui-Gon says to the child Anakin, your focus determines your reality.
Ooh.
And then they move on. And I'm like, whoa. Go back to that. Like, that was impactful. Please explain more. And so finally, like, going through like my own journey of like, personal development and everything, I'm like, it really is true. Your focus determines your reality. And again, I guess to pull from another Tony Robbins quote, right? Where focus goes, energy flows, as he says. So, so whatever you're focused on, like that's it. So if you're focused on the anger, you sit in the anger, you're angry, like, it just self-perpetuates, and you're just like, why am I in this situation? But you can change your focus in an instant.
Yes, you can.
And then suddenly you're out of it, right? You can just, like you said, just let it wash away, and you're just like, hey, I can't control it. This is out of my, it's out of my control. And why do we, and I think it's a societal thing too, just why do we focus on the things we can't control? Right? Like, holy crap, the weather,
Yeah. And Daniel, I know you'll appreciate this example, and I know you will resonate with this, because we know from back in the day for sure. So going back to the time when you couldn't necessarily save content, there were a few rare games, like I believe Dragon Warrior from Nintendo did eventually come out with a slot that you can stick in, and it does save the game. So that was pretty cool, because that just was a crazy involved game.
Dragon Warrior would let you save, and it was one of the very few. Yep.
Yeah. But here's the thing: for those, like, let's go back to Super Mario, you couldn't save it. And so a lot of times what us gamers would do is pause the game, turn off the TV, but leave the console on for the next day when we come back. But see, then what happens is somebody comes in the room or something like that, and they're like, oh, they left the console on, and they shut it off. All your work is gone. You want to talk about anger? Yeah.
I resonate with that so well. Because even like just deleting even the save file, even if there is a save file, like I grew up, so I have 3 brothers, right? So 4 boys in total, and I had my youngest brother on accident, but I didn't forgive him for a while. On accident, deleted one of my save, like the entire memory card of a PlayStation 2 memory card. Might have been PS1, but just all the data gone. Hours of work just vanished. I was so mad, but I couldn't. You can't do anything. It's just gone. Like so I was just steeped in anger for a while. Like I can't believe he did this. It was an accident. Like I still forgave him for it because it's like I didn't know. It's like I pushed a button and then it all went away. I'm like, But then eventually it's like, all right, well I got to move past it. And then probably I think it was like a year later I finally went back and beat the game that I was playing at the time because I just couldn't look at that game for a while. Just too much anger.
I remember those moments growing up a lot. Just, pausing the game, turning off the TV, but leaving the console on so that it stayed where and then when you're ready to go back to it the next day, coming back. But then those moments where something happened and the console gets turned, oh my gosh.
I feel that so much. So yes, resonate. So fortunately we have the autosave feature now, which so we don't build as much resilience necessarily. Yeah, they made some aspects of games harder, so we still build that resilience. It absolutely is still a thing, but at least the way we progress through games now is different with this autosave feature in the new games. So but the MMOs are still hard because there's no save there. That's 20-minute fights that you have to keep doing over and over and over again.
I feel you guys. I mean, it's kind of like when you've just written out something amazing you're about to post on social media. It might have taken you an hour to put it together. And then somehow you go off the screen and you come back and where the hell did it go? And you lose the whole thing, right?
Yes.
And, it's like that kind of thing, right? Which can happen quite regularly. In fact, it happened with Leanne Clune and I. We're doing this book called Fear to Freedom, Conscious Co-Creators Manifesting Magic. And as we were writing this big post the other day, this is exactly what happened. We lost the whole thing. And so we had to start all over again. And often what happens is that when you start all over again, often the second post actually ends up being better than the first post. But it's what's frustrating is that you lose that time. And that's what I'm hearing what you're saying in the anger, that you've lost all that time of all the work you've put into, what you've just saved. And then it just disappears just like that. And so then it's a choice, coming back to what Daniel was saying, what you focus on grows. How long are we going to choose to stay angry? Yes, I think we need to feel the emotions. I think the healing is in the feeling is a great saying. The healing is in the feeling. I think we have to feel it, but then how long are we going to choose to hold on to it? To how long are we going to choose to stay angry or choose to stay frustrated before we actually get into action and do something positive moving forward? Because it's all a choice. We can be stuck, or we can get out of that stuck energy and shift our energy, which will then shift everyone around us.
Exactly. And for those listening, I would just echo that point, is that it is okay to feel those emotions. It is okay. Mm-hmm. Just don't sit in them forever, right? No. You got to move past it at some point, and it is that easy, right? Just again, where your focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah, and don't beat anyone up around you. Okay, be kind always. Don't throw anything at anyone around you. Okay, and definitely do not harm animals. Now, talking of anger, I watched the Greenpeace documentary the other day. It's called "You Can Change the World," I believe it is. You can change. I saw it on Netflix at my mum's nursing home. Yeah, you can change the world. Anyway, the Greenpeace, showing where Greenpeace started. Now, I am a massive animal lover. And I must say, after watching this documentary, it inspired me in some ways, but in other ways I got incredibly angry at people that harpoon whales and people that cut baby seals for their fur. And there was this one image of the mother running after the baby seal that was being dragged away from, by these people that were cutting up this baby seal for its fur. And I tell you what, that image is stuck in my head. And I feel a lot of anger around this whole thing. And I think to myself, well, are people still whaling to this day? Are people still clubbing seals for their fur to this day? I mean, that anger is there for me, but you know what? I'm going to channel that anger and I'm going to look into this further, and I'm going to look at what I can do to help share in a positive way to help end complete animal cruelty that is not necessary, right? And now, this is not about whether you eat meat or not eat meat. This is about how do we treat our animals. If you're going to kill animals for their food, kill them quickly and humanely. but the way what we have allowed to happen with animal cruelty over the decades is absolutely disgusting. And I'm sure in certain games, there's a lot of cruelty, right? In fact, I look at Hollywood movies nowadays, and it's kind of like sometimes when all this shooting and everything, it's like you're actually watching a game unfold in Hollywood movies. Now, I don't know about with animals, but I see a lot of anger and a lot of violence and in a lot of games. So what are your thoughts around the anger and the violence that is sometimes through some of these games where people are just killing each other all over the place? What are your thoughts about how that can help affect people's mental health?
That's a great question. This kind of comes to the argument: do video games make people violent? Right? Are violent video games making people violent? And there's actually a bunch of research, in my opinion, too, that video games do not make people violent. Violent video games do not make people violent. It really is like inherent to the individual. Like if there's a violent tendency within the child or within the person, the violent video game kind of like is more of like a magnifying glass. It just kind of or a mirror even, just to say like, yes, this happens, but it doesn't. It's not like a drug or like an addiction or something where it's like, oh, they become this. Like, no, it's not a cause and effect. So for that aspect, I want to make sure very clear, violent video games do not make violent kids. That's not true at all. There's tons of studies that have now debunked that. As far as the showing of like kind of the graphical images, right? So I think that's something that like, just like movies, like I would treat the medium a little bit more like a movie in that instance, where there's a reason we have maturity ratings on movies, right? Where it's like, oh, well, maybe this is too graphic, so we'll put a PG-13 on it. Like, oh, this is really ridiculous, we're going to put the rated R on it. And I know in Europe and in the US for sure, and I forget what other bodies do this, but basically the gaming industry self-regulates on our own systems, right? In the US, we call it the ESRB system. I forget what it all stands for, but it's basically the rating system for video games. So in the same way, there's like on the movies, there's E for everyone, and then there's like E10 plus, and then there's T for teen, and then M for mature, which is like 17 plus. So if you're looking to get a game, and again, most retailers, and they really should, I think you can call them on it if they don't enforce like those restrictions. So like, and even if you're a parent going to buy a video game and they come to you and say like, and you can usually tell, because again, I worked at a GameStop. So like, obviously a mother comes up and is like, hey, I want to buy this game. It's called Gears of War. And it's like, oh, that's rated M for mature. Who is this for? And it's like, if it's for them, great. But like, usually it's not for them. It's like, oh, it's for my like 10-year-old. I'm like, ooh. So like, they can buy it because they're over 17 because they're the parent, but it's on us as like the retailer, for the GameStop in that instance, where it's like, hey, this is rated for M for mature, and you show them the back of the package, just like, yeah, this one says for blood and gore and whatever, and especially if you played it like myself, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of shooting, there's a lot of blood and guts, and the gun actually has a built-in chainsaw in it that can cut the enemy in half. So I don't know if that's what you want for your kid. Oh, and they'll put that one back. It's like, okay. So it's similar to like a movies. It's like, if you don't want your kids to see that stuff, there is a rating system for that. But again, violent video games do not make violent kids. That's what's clear. But if it's something you want to limit what the child sees, absolutely the rating system is there for you for that.
It's kind of like the same concept of I had it and I lost it. There it is. Guns kill people. No, guns don't kill people. That trigger didn't go off on its own. I mean, unless you accidentally dropped it, but then that's an accident. No, people kill people. To say that guns kill people is the same thing as saying that cars kill people. It's the same thing of saying that fork kills people. So why don't we just ban forks? We can no longer have any fork. It is the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, that's right. Knives, very dangerous weapon. You can no longer cut your food ever again. Like,
right?
It doesn't make sense. But yeah, so it is like a medium. I think it was key. It is a more immersive and a more visceral medium, and I think that maybe that's where people tend to come from on that regard. It's like, because you actually interact with it more, right? And I know and so somebody can, I'm sure, correct me in comments or something if I'm wrong, but I do know that there was, as far as the training, like the U.S. military was actually worried about this when, like now that we have like drones that actually can, remotely be piloted and actually shoot people. And there was a worry that this, like, well, this is going to just make this, basically almost psychopathic behavior, would be like, well, it doesn't matter because it's a video game now, because I can look down on a screen and not even be in harm's way. And I think they specifically put in, as part of the training and as part of like the live combat situations, where if they do need to take out a target and a person is killed, they actually keep the drone around and they actually show to the pilot, to the person that was actually watching, who actually committed it, basically the aftermath, like what happens, like, hey, this really happened. It's not just a video game, right? So they show viscerally, like, this is something that you did. They really anchor in that, this is real. Right? So there is some, I guess there is some worry, I guess, about that. So like there's certain, things like the U.S. military that like try to make sure that that behavior is understood, that this has real consequences in those instances, right? In a video game, right, where it is completely fake, you're down to this kind of sense of like, again, it's more like a movie. It's like you, in the same way that we have the maturity ratings also for, basically understanding, right? So not only like, oh, I don't want my kid to see gore or whatever. At what point does a 6-year-old understand that, like, if somebody, watches, pick a violent movie like the John Wick movies, if you've seen those, right? There's tons of killing in that one, where just the character just runs around and just shoots people constantly. How much does a 6-year-old understand what's happening there? Like, by the same way, in a video game, if you're controlling it and the character is just shooting constantly, it's like, at what point does a 6-year-old understand? Maybe that's, you don't want to put that in their head as far as that. So I think it's more of like that kind of, again, the rating system to help with behavior and understanding as the child grows. But once you're out of that, I think it's like you treat it like a movie. If the whoever's playing is mature enough, I think it's like you treat it like a movie. It's like, yeah, people know it's not real. You put a gun in somebody's hands, that, I'll take as an example as a gamer, right? I did like Boy Scouts, right? So I did like shooting, we actually had like, shotgun shooting and rifle shooting. It's a whole different experience when you have a real gun in your hands versus the like in a video game, because it is that game element, especially on like, because it's on the screen and I have a controller versus I'm actually holding a gun now. It's like, wow, this is a different experience. So I think even as a gamer, we understand this is different. Like,
I guess in some ways it would be a release of that kind of, aggression and anger or whatever for some people, shooting, and, it's a safe way to sort of let that out, I guess. I think
I agree. Yeah. I think it is a good outlet to vent frustration, I guess, too, because there's definitely several games. Yeah, I play a wide variety of games, and there's definitely a lot of games where I'm like, have a very creative aspect to it too. Like, I think Minecraft is a popular example. A lot of people that like, it's like you want to build, like, you can build your own house, build your own castle, build your own town, whatever it is. And then sometimes you have a bad day at work and you're like, I just need to play a game and blow stuff up. You'll play like either a shooting game or like one of these other like big strategy games where you just control a bunch of units that just go blow up things. You're like, that's fun too, just to vent some steam.
I must say, when I was watching this Greenpeace documentary, it's actually called How to Change the World. It was done in 2015. How to Change the World. If you haven't seen it, very, very powerful movie. And as I was watching these Russian ships, these huge, ships, as they were harpooning these whales, and they harpooned this baby whale and they just left it there, right? Because they've already taken the mum and the dad, etc. And as I was watching it, I was thinking, I'm generally a very peaceful person, but right now I feel like turning that harpoon back on the people in that boat and harpooning them. You know what I mean? Like, this is what was going through my head. Is like, I'm generally very peaceful, but I think some people on the planet that are doing that kind of cruelty to animals, I think they just do not deserve to even live on the planet. This is why I have so much more compassion for animals than I do for humans, because I think human beings in general have done such a good job of destroying the planet and treating animals with complete contempt. And these animals have feelings. They have, this is, to see this baby seal get carted away and the mother running after it, it's stuff that you just cannot wipe from your memory. And it's okay. So we see this. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to channel our anger into doing something positive? Now, I know gaming is like it's a whole sort of imaginary world, but really, if we were looking at power and success in life and turning gaming into power and success in life and into becoming empowered around something, what I see is that where can you channel your anger for whatever it is? And some people don't give a shit about animals and they'll have no feelings whatsoever. They'll just go, oh yeah, that's just normal. That's just, they'll have some reason for why that's a good thing or why they're killing the seal. Oh no, it's good. The fur is very good for people who are cold in some countries. No, you can live without that seal fur. You don't need fur to be keeping warm. Okay. Firstly, but there'll be people that will have justifications and reasons for all sorts of cruelty, right? In their minds, they'll be, oh yeah, this is quite normal. And, animals, oh, who cares? It's only an animal, whatever, right? There'll be people that feel that way. But for me, because I've got anger around that and I've had frustration around that, this is why I've done 18 years of animal action events now, right? I've actually taken action for animals and it's spurring me on to do even more and to look into this even further and to take even more action because I'm now, angry about it. And while I'd love to harpoon some of these harpooners, I'm never going to do that, of course, because that's not my way of things, right? It's, and obviously they're just doing it because they want the job, right? Obviously they're just doing it for the money, right? As a lot of these people in these powerful, successful roles do things just for the money. And this is where, that's a whole other thing is that, and of course, there's lots of people that are very wealthy that also don't do a lot of harm to animals or the environment. However, really, when we look at power and success as our topic and how gaming can impact that, because for some of these people that are shooting whales or clubbing seals, it's a game for them, right? For some of these people, it's a game. Oh, how many seals can we get today? How many whales can we kill today? And they'll probably get rewarded for the number of games, that they win for them, as in how many whales they bring home or how many seals that they club or whatever. There'll be people that get rewarded for this kind of animal cruelty, right? And so really what we're saying here is channeling that anger for whatever it is that you have in life. Like, let's put this in a real life perspective here. What are some ways to empower people around, feelings of anger that they might have around whatever's going on in the world?
Gosh, so I think you nailed it on the head with one word. If we want to channel our anger into something, it requires action, right? Sitting, stewing in the anger isn't going to change anything. Change comes from action. So it's really like, again, understanding what you can control and taking action around that. So in the case of your example, doing the animal activist events, perfect. Yeah, that's the action. And when we come to something like gaming, right? So, and not just anger, but like, I think anything that has kind of like a strong emotion to it, we'll just call it passion, right? Whether it's like passion good, passion, anger bad, and just being able to focus that. Again, it's what are you going to do with it, right? I think is the real question here. And a lot of the gaming aspect of it, again, is, learning through the gaming, and whether it's blowing off steam in the game, great, you're still building these skills, right? And I like to come back to like the skill building aspect of it. So when we get out of the game, most people, and like in my experience and the people that I've coached, most people, they come out of the game and they're like, well, I don't know what to work on. I don't know these skills. I'm like, oof, you have them. I just need to show you how. So it's taking this action of learning and personal development and going on this journey to say like, hey, I have these skills. I just need to know how to kind of slowly change them or just, morph them only slightly just to say, this is actually real world problem solving skills. Like my time spent in an RPG, just leveling up and understanding all the in-game economy and buying potions at the item shop, you actually understand inventory management. You actually understand economics. It's like the reason, like, I think a lot of kids that play these RPGs, they're really good with just kind of these simple things that you wouldn't think about, just kind of daily interactions. They understand like money and currency, how things flow. why it takes effort to get money to do something and having that sense of reward. It's like, well, it's built in the game. The games mimic real life. It's like you do effort, you get rewarded. So being able to channel that into saying like, well, what can I do with it? Like there's in a game, there's so many ways you can go. And I think and so much true of life too. To give a real world example though, so I'd love to say, how does gaming help in the real world? Sometimes people ask like, okay, well, I understand that there's, maybe some soft skills or even like the hard skills that like I teach, like you have problem solving. Some people still kind of want more and they're like, okay, but how has gaming helped the world? Well, it has. And there's a very fun example I can share with you. So research up in, I think it was the University of Washington, they were working on, this is 15 plus years ago at this point, they were working on AIDS research. They were doing an AIDS medication. So as of recording, I guess, HIV AIDS isn't really as big of a thing that you might have heard about as opposed to like growing up like 80s, 90s, early 2000s, where like AIDS was like an epidemic. Everybody was like freaking out, scared. Anybody that had AIDS, they're like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. Now it's a little bit, it's definitely toned down more than it used to be because they've come out with medicines. And one of these key medicines came out of the University of Washington. And it was something that had taken scientists more than 10 years that they were stumped on. They were doing, it required a lot of experimentation with what they called protein folding. And so not being a mechanical or biologist or anything to understand truly how it all works, so I can't explain that part of it, but they call it protein folding, and it's about like changing the way that these little proteins interact and like making the medication work in such a way that it's like, all right, how does this medicine affect the cells? And protein folding, computer models just could not do it. It's just like it required a more like human intuited mind. So protein folding, very easy for humans, not good for computers. So it's one of these things where they kept trying these things to try to make it work. And they took 10 years and they were just stumped. The scientists stumped on how to make these proteins fold in a way that they can make this medication for HIV AIDS. And so this was now around the time of gamification was just starting to kind of be a thing. So they decided to put it into, they had created, and I think it was the University of Washington themselves created a game called Fold It. So Fold It is a protein folding game where they would put challenges into the game where players, real people could go in and like fold the proteins, as they call it, to like maneuver the proteins in a way that the medication would work. And so they decided to put this HIV AIDS problem that they were working on into the game to say like, hey, we're having trouble with this. Let's see if people can figure this out. And the great news is it worked. They solved it. But not only did they solve it, it took scientists 10 years. And once they put it into Fold It and they turned it on, it was solved in 10 days. Talk about the power of gaming and gamification. It's touted as a huge example of gamification. Like let's give players of games an opportunity to do this. And I absolutely love and echo the fact that people that use it as a gamification example, 100% correct. And I would say yes, and not only was it done through gamification to make this possible, if when interviewed and they said, okay, who actually did it in the 10 days? It was gamers. It was actually the college students on campus that were known to be hardcore, decade-long gamers. It's these problem-solving skills as a gamer you don't realize you have until a challenge is put in front of you that affects the real world that you can solve what took scientists 10 years, you solved in 10 days.
Wow.
That's very powerful. And that's the thing, taking action, as you said earlier, taking action and power and success. Now, what does that really mean? Because power and success, with our topic today, the thing about power and success is no matter how powerful you are, and no matter how successful you are or you think you are, there's always another level. that you can be. There's always another level of power or success that you could achieve. So this can be a real trap, because, you know, it can be like you can be on the mouse on the wheel and working, feeling like you're not actually getting somewhere. And this is where we take action on our learnings, we become empowered. And in fact, the meaning of empower is giving someone the authority or power to do something. So empowering is actually making someone stronger and more confident in controlling their life and claiming their rights. So where could you be more empowered in your life? Where could you use games or gaming to be more empowered in your life to make changes in the real world using this fake world or this imaginary world of gaming? And I think for a lot of people, there's this voyeuristic thing about gaming too, that people love to sort of escape reality. However, really how closely linked it is with reality, whether people are conscious or not conscious of it, is very, very interesting. And how quickly those applications can make massive impact, as you just shared, you know, with Folded, etc. You know, how huge that can be. And when it's channeled for good, you know, what a beautiful thing that is when it is channeled for good.
Exactly right. And yeah, just to comment again on the escapism part, because I think that is another huge trap that I think a lot of people see with gaming, right? And especially those that see gaming as a waste of time. They're like, well, gaming is an escape. It's just a place to go to not do anything. But at the same time, there's the two things that come out of that are like, well, wait a minute. So yes, it can be an escape, but as we talked a little bit earlier, sometimes you need that as kind of like a decompress kind of area, like to vent, just kind of, or just kind of, you know, like after a long day, sure. But at the same time, playing the games, a lot of games, you have all these kind of interesting, playful aspects, as we say. Games can give you a sense of hope. Games give a sense of discovery. Games, like I said, in my case, give a sense of accomplishment. So all these things that, okay, you're escaping to a virtual world, but there's actually real, like, self consequences and state changes that you can have as a result of the game that just make it so much more powerful that people don't realize.
True.
And the gaming and even in the escape aspect of it is still a little, like, it still gets me a little bit to be like, well, I don't understand why you think it's such an escape compared to other forms of media. Because why is it that we can play a game for like 2 or 3 hours and we're wasting time, but then the same people will binge Netflix for 8 hours and say, yep, that was my day, it's all fun. It's like,
great example.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. You sat there in front of your TV for 8 hours, and I sat in front of my computer, my console for 3, and suddenly I wasted more time? And then I would argue also, but oh, by the way, games are interactive. I'm actually learning something, right? And unless you're watching like the documentary, chances are you didn't learn anything watching the movie.
Yes, well, that's right. It's actually very similar as far as the voyeuristic side of things. And as you say, it's interactive with games, so it's actually, you know, more experiential in that way. However, you know, I love movies because I love it, you know, sort of voyeuring into another world. And I mean, I look at movies from a whole other way too, because of my media background. I'm watching the acting, I'm listening to how they do the sound, how they do, you know, all of it. I'm looking at the set layout. I'm looking, you know, so I'm analyzing from many different aspects when I watch movies and when I watch documentaries. And
right, and that's, you know, yes, echo. I love movies too, so I don't want to knock movies to say, oh, I enjoy me some movies for sure. I just think it's so funny and like a little hypocritical when those same people that are commenting that games are worthless are the same people that only watch Netflix just to escape and not do anything, and you're like, I just don't understand.
Yes, it's because people knock what they don't understand, you see, and just because they're not into it doesn't mean that it's not great. And that's where this topic today is really fantastic, to help debunk that, you know, that actually how to turn games or gaming into power and success, well, actually, in fact, it is empowering people and having people feel successful, or, having people experience the full emotion of life as we go, because, games will bring that out, right? It's like being in love, but being in love, not that some of us have felt this for a while, but, when I know that I have felt it before, and, you have the highs and highs of love when you feel love, and then you can have the lows and lows of, the low times when you're in a relationship as well. However, if you've never loved, then you're never going to have the highs, the lows, the lows. It's like if you've never fully gamed and, got into these games, how do you experience the highs of the game and the lows of the game, and that full gamut of emotions that comes with it? And it's kind of like you're going through the roller coaster ride of emotions by gaming, which then empowers you to be more resilient in life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. That's 100%. I can't even echo the point further. That's so good. Because I wanted to say just the sense of growth, I think, is the huge thing that I wanted to come back to on the gaming side of it. And just the sense of progression, right? We talk about progressing in a video game, but like it's the same thing outside of it too. Like just whether it's personal development or just, anything that we try to do, we're trying to grow, right? Whether it's, trying to grow ourselves and be better and learn more, or whether we're, running a company or an employee and part of a company, it's about trying to grow the amount of, profit that we're making for the business. It's about, your own personal salary, right? You're hoping to move up and try to earn more every year. And so this sense of progression, I think, is so huge that I wanted to at least mention, to say in games, it's inherently built in. And that's what I think and I'll just say my commentary is that I think gamers, that's the one thing I think is a little bit of a struggle coming out of the game into the real world, is that when you play a game, the progression's built in. It's inherent. It's part of the system. And when you come outside the game, you have to kind of make it for yourself. And I think that's probably the one place I would say gamers struggle, and I think a lot of people struggle with just inherently too. So like gamers can understand it, but they don't necessarily do it themselves automatically. So I think that one of the reasons gamification is becoming so popular, becoming so widespread, is because it is exactly what people need, is the sense of growth and progression out in our daily lives. Again, gamers get it immediately, but we don't do it outside of the game.
Wow.
Yeah, I think good point there. And the thing with gaming too, it can become very addictive. And I've noticed a few online shopping sites recently that have been gamifying how they do things, and people get very addicted to these online shopping sites. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure we know which ones they are, that gamify full on, and some of them, out of China. I'd say most of them would be out of China. That basically they have like an online casino on these apps that you spin the wheel and you get 45% off or whatever, and people get so addicted and they buy and consume all this stuff off these sites. So what are some tips you give around, for people to help stop the addiction to gaming and to actually be able to sort of pull away? Because I know some people, must feel like they spend their whole lives on these games or these online stores.
The gaming addiction is definitely a thing, and I'd say it is definitely people that have more addicting personalities that even gravitate toward games, I think, too, just because it has that kind of sense of constant reward. And I think part of it too is being able to, again, stopping yourself consciously and asking why, right? So again, we say, why is it fun? Sometimes you have to ask, why are you playing? And sometimes it gets to the point, it's like, because there's definitely been times where I've been playing a game long enough that I have to stop myself even in the game to say, like, why am I still playing this? Like, it's not fun anymore. So you have to have this kind of conscious realization. So it's something I would definitely ask of yourself, and whether, get into a cadence, even just like whether it's, every day, just like kind of as you're playing, just at least once a day, just be like, why am I playing this? It's like, am I still having fun? Because sometimes you aren't. And that's what it's just so funny to think about, because that's something that happened, even with my wife recently too. It's like she was playing something and she was frustrated at the game, and like she kind of done nearly everything in the game, and it was like kind of she gotten her money's worth out of the game, right, we could say. And it was like, okay, why are you still playing that? It's like, well, because I want to get this last thing. It's like, but I don't even want it. I'm like, then why are you playing?
Yes.
So being able to stop ourselves and just at least once, I'd say once a day, just consciously ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I playing this? Why am I on the site, playing casino shopping, right? Why am I doing
Yes.
this? Well, it's really fun. Okay. But like I said earlier, why is it fun? It's like, well, because I want to
Yes.
get all the little prizes. I want to get all the things and be like, okay, why do you want those? It's like, oh, maybe I don't. It's like, there you go. I think
Mm,
the why question is the most powerful, right? The
yeah.
more times you ask why, the more you get to the core of the issue.
Yes, it is very powerful. And also to time yourself, because it can also be like a void. And I've noticed with social media
Yeah.
as well, social media have been gamifying everything. They're giving you scores. They're saying, oh, you're now that person's top fan. Do you want to put that up? You've now got this many points as like everything's being gamified, and people are getting sucked into the void of these games. And we need to get more conscious. I mean, it's great to play the games, but also know when to stop. Great to start, but know when to stop, because I think we also need a balanced life,
Yeah,
and I think
for sure.
I think sometimes we can be completely not balanced.
Yeah.
So
I
as
love
we're
the
starting,
fact that I want to share something real quick, but
yeah,
I love the fact that you said, time yourself, set a time. Because there's a point, especially when I got into games like StarCraft and Warcraft, hours can go by and you don't even know hours have gone by. So eventually, when I was in Bible college and I would get on these campaigns and I would start, doing stuff in StarCraft or Warcraft, I literally got to the point to where I'm like, okay, I need to set a timer over here and have that go off and give me a time reality. Because otherwise, it's like I look up and it's 3 hours later. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to play that long. Where did the time go? What happened? So I do love that, and I think that is wise. Set a timer on yourself, because in some of these games, time goes by like this, and you can easily lose 3 or 4 hours unintentionally. So I think it's
mm,
huge.
I've
and
definitely
then
lost many an hour to
Yeah.
gaming for sure.
and then it becomes just the same as Netflix binging, right? When before you know it,
Exactly.
you're 10 series in and you want to keep going, because
Because
we've
it's
almost
fun.
been,
Absolutely. I would say, and for those that want to set that time or set that timer, I would even back up and say the step one would just be track it. Just track how much
mm,
time. Because like sometimes it's
yes,
even just that awareness to say like,
Yeah.
all right, now that I've tracked, how much time did I spend on what activities for a week, right? That's one of these like brilliant examples I can share with people is like track your time. Just what did you do every day for a week, and just like how much time did you spend in what kind of area, not every little task, but like kind of group it in an area. This is when I worked on my business, or when I went to work. This is when I spent time with family or friends, whatever. This is the time I spent gaming. And then at the end of the week you look at that and you're like, wow, I spent a lot of time here. And then that will help reinforce that to say like, okay, now I need to set a timer because this is starting to get out of hand. I think the
yes, yeah.
awareness is huge.
And talking of time, it is coming almost to the end of our show. So Daniel, how can people work with you and connect with you?
Absolutely. I think the best way to connect with me is probably on my website, dragonmorexp.com. That'll be the best place that you can find me, connect, and get on a list and sign up for a time. I'd love to talk to people and just kind of share what I do and let me know what you do so I can see if I can help you. Just basically pull that gaming skill out into the real world.
Beautiful. Love that. And do you have a favorite quote or motto that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, actually, a little bit on that tracking kind of thing. I think that's what kind of brought it up. I think my favorite quote, favorite mantra is what gets measured gets rewarded, and what gets rewarded gets done.
Oh,
So just
That's a
the
great one.
simple act of tracking the metrics, because it works so well in business, right? Just like, how do you get your bonuses for the year? How do you drive behavior? You measure, and then you reward that measurement. And that'll drive the behavior. It works in business. It works in personal. Absolutely.
Yeah, love that, Daniel. Thank you so much. And we'll come back as well at the end if there's any other final comments. But firstly, Ken, let's go over to you. How can people connect with you?
Well, so before I get into that, so maybe this is your first time watching Total Truth Show, and maybe this is the first time seeing me. It's like, who's Ken? What does he do? You know, and different things like that. I've literally lost 62.5 pounds, and I've kept it off for 7+ years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. And right now, I'm actually giving away my 3 secrets to help you to lose weight, feel energized, and get healthy without starving or dieting. In just 3 short, powerful one-on-one sessions with me through my mini educational bootcamp, I am exposing the 3 biggest lies that is keeping people sick, stuck, and overweight, because that's how that industry makes money. And I'm empowering people with the truth so they can finally break free and keep the weight off for life. How you get into that world, and by the way, it is very reasonably priced, and how you get into that world is through my Connect link right here. Aldwyn's got it on the screen, www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. It's just a real simple customized Connect page that I made, and there's 4 buttons on that page. One is a button to join my mini educational bootcamp. The second button is to book a strategy call with me. That's free. You got nothing to lose there. So book a strategy call. Let's unpack what your journey looks like moving forward. And then the other 2 buttons are to connect with me on Facebook and then to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So that's how you can get into my world and connect with me and even start working with me. And my quote, which I don't have an originator for this, but here's the quote. Every mission you've conquered in a game trains you for real life strategy, discipline, and decisive action.
Love that, Ken. Thank you so much. And for those who want to connect with me, you can go to linktree/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. If you feel like you're the world's best kept secret right now and you want to get out there, be seen, heard, and known amongst the noise, then I can definitely help you do that, help package up your genius, help build your brand, build your influence and credibility through mass media exposure. Now, we have a very exciting event coming up in Sydney, July 26th. We are going to be doing the Fear to Freedom book launch in Sydney for those in that area. And for those online, we've got the free download. We're going to have for 24 hours of the book, July 24. We're doing the Amazon launch for 24 hours only, July 24. You're going to be able to get a free copy of the book, A Fear to Freedom, Conscious Creators Manifesting Magic. And we have 11 co-authors there from all around Australia. So you can also find the link to the launch in my link tree there. That is my YouTube channel right there on the screen. I recommend subscribe if you haven't. We've got over 1,600 videos in there, a lot of inspiring content, not just the Total Truth Show episodes here, but also Media Queen TV, Media Mavens shows, some of my other shows there, and some other awesome content. So I recommend check that out and reach out if you would like to know more about how to get yourself out there. Also, we have every month the Global Good News Challenge, which I highly recommend that you do. In fact, I challenge you to do a Global Good News Challenge. This is free marketing. It's a great way that you will feel amazing when you share gratitude and good news on social media live videos. All the details are pinned to the top of the Global Good News Challenge Facebook page, and you'll also find it there in my link tree /Aldwyn. And also in there, you'll see my media website, which has some free media resources as well. So that's how you can connect with me. And my quote for today is coming up. All right. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. The courage to continue that counts. And I think that's important in a game. That's
really good. Yep.
In life is to keep going no matter what. When you're knocked down, to use that strength to get back up and, use that to empower you to become even stronger moving forward. This has been such an insightful show. Is there anything else you want to share, Daniel, before we wrap up today, or Ken?
I'll just say, I guess, for those gaming, if I had to sum it up in just a few words, it'd just be your gaming matters. Right? It's as simple as that.
Your gaming matters, and have fun. Yes, Ken.
Yes, definitely. All I'm going to say is, guys, hey, this is the second interview that I've had the opportunity and pleasure to be on with Daniel. And so I invite you connect with him, get into his world, start learning about what he does. And the reason why I'm placing such emphasis on encouraging to connect with him is just because I see the potential and talent with what he's doing. Nobody else is talking about this or taking this kind of angle. He's got a very unique niche that he's working, and I would encourage you, especially if you have gaming experience, get into his world and start using that for your benefit to advance either your job, your career, or even advance yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I've absolutely loved this show. I want to thank everyone who's joined us live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you've tuned in. Let us know, what have you got out of this conversation today? Let us know in the comments, what is your aha or gold nugget that you have got from today? I really loved, I must say, the lead with kindness. I really love that today, Daniel, and hats off to your grandfather. He must have been an extraordinary man. And thank you so much for being our guest here today. Please share the love, like our Total Truth Show Facebook page, check us out on Spotify and all the places. Let's stay connected. And we're going to be back next week. We have a very special episode 111 coming up with our Fear to Freedom co-authors. And it's actually going to be on launch day, our next show, where you can get a free copy of the Fear to Freedom book. So stay tuned for that, for our next Total Truth Show episode. Thank you once again, Daniel. Ken, always a pleasure. Have a magnificent day moving forward, and we'll see you back again soon. Bye for now. See you. Bye.